You walked into the fitting expecting to gain 10 yards. Instead, you paid for a set of irons that actually cost you strokes, and the evidence is in the launch monitor data that the fitter didn't show you. 75% of male golfers over 60 are fitted with shafts that are too stiff for their current swing speed. That's not a guess. That's a number from the independent testing database at the Golf Lab in the United States, where certified fitters measured over 1,200 senior swings across 9 facilities. The irony is brutal. You bought a stiffer shaft, thinking it would tighten your dispersion and deliver more control. But here's what the launch monitor reveals when the sensor is placed on the club head itself. 8 yards of carry and 36% tighter dispersion. That is not a swing change, that is a spec change. If you want more revelations that turn the fitting mentality on its head, subscribe so each new video reaches you before your next visit to the shop. Drop flex in the comments if you are now questioning your current shaft. When a 60-year-old golfer with a 95-mile-per-hour driver speed swings a regular flex iron shaft, the head arrives at impact within 1 degree of the manufacturer's intended face angle. That same golfer, swinging a stiff shaft, arrives at impact 3 degrees open on average. 3 degrees of open face at impact sends the ball roughly 15 feet right of target at 150 yards. Multiply that by 14 approach shots per round, and you have lost just over a club length of effective fairway on every iron shot. The shaft you chose for control has introduced a consistent miss you cannot fix with swing mechanics. If you have ever stood over a 7-iron, aimed at the left edge of the green, watched the ball start right and stay right, and then told yourself you need to aim further left next time, you have already been compensating for a shaft that does not match you. One of the researchers at the Golf Lab found that senior golfers fitted with the correct flex gained an average of 8 yards of carry and reduced their left-right dispersion by 36%. That is not hitting it longer by swinging harder. That is hitting it longer because the shaft allows the club face to return to square. Without a conscious manipulation, your brain cannot repeat reliably. Now consider the second mistake. The lie angle. Most retail fittings set the lie angle based on a static measurement taken while you stand still with a club on the ground. A fitter asks you to assume your address posture. They place a lie board under your feet. They look at the sole mark on a piece of tape. That measurement assumes your spine angle at address is identical to your spine angle at impact. That assumption is false for every golfer over 55, and it is catastrophically false for golfers with limited hip rotation. Here is what happens. As you swing, your body extends slightly through impact because your hips did not clear completely. This raises the club head by a fraction of an inch. When the club head is raised, the toe drops. A lie angle that was perfect at address becomes 2 degrees flat at impact. The heel of the iron digs into the ground first, closing the face. You hit a pull hook on a day when your left hip felt tight. The next day, you flush one, but the club is still too flat and you block it right. 3 degrees of lie error at impact produces roughly 20 feet of lateral dispersion on a 150-yard shot. That is the difference between a regulation green and a greenside bunker. And because the error is in the lie angle rather than in your swing, you spend 6 months trying to fix a technique that was never broken. One of the best documented studies in golf fitting literature comes from the Ping Fitting Lab, Arizona. Their data showed that over 60% of golfers playing off the rack irons had a lie angle error of at least 2 degrees. For senior golfers in that study, the error rate climbed to 73%. Think about that number for a second. Nearly 3 out of 4 senior golfers are hitting irons that were built for a different player, and the lie angle is the most expensive parameter to correct after purchase, because bending forged irons changes their bounce and sole relief, and cast irons simply crack if you try. 73%. That is the probability that your irons were never right for you from the start. If this resonates with you, there's a lot more where this came from. Link in the description. Subscribe to keep pulling back the curtain on what the fitting industry does not want you to know. In the comments, write lie. If you have ever felt your iron was steering you into a bad shot. The third mistake is club length. The conventional wisdom says shorter golfers need shorter clubs. That is true if you are building a club from scratch for a 5'2" junior. It is false for a 5'10" senior who has lost 3 inches of thoracic spine mobility over 20 years. When your upper back rounds more at address, your hand position moves lower relative to the ground. A standard length club that fits you at age 45 now requires you to crouch deeper to reach the ball at impact. That deeper crouch restricts your hip turn, reduces your shoulder tilt, and pulls your strike pattern toward the heel of the club face. The heel strike is the death of distance. A shot struck 3 millimeters toward the heel on a modern hollow head iron loses 8 yards of carry immediately. The club face twists at impact, and the ball comes out low and left if you are a right-handed golfer. The fix is counterintuitive. Shorten the club by 1/4 of an inch and add 2 degrees of upright lie. You stand taller at address, your hip turn returns. The strike moves back toward the center of the face. A club fitter named Tom Wishon documented this exact pattern across thousands of fittings with senior golfers. He found that golfers over 60 who were fitted with clubs 1/4 inch shorter and 1 degree upright gained an average of 54% more strikes in the center zone of the face. Now, here is the mechanism that connects all 3 mistakes together. The fitting itself is designed to sell you clubs, not to find your correct specs. The fitter has 30 minutes. They pull a set of irons off the rack. They hand you a stiff shaft, because that is what the standard set contains. They check lie angle with a piece of tape and a lie board that was designed for a golfer standing perfectly still. The fitting process assumes your body is static. Your body at impact is not static. The fitting assumes your swing speed is what it was at age 45. It is not, and the fitting assumes you will adapt to the club rather than asking the club to adapt to you. If you have ever felt that your new irons are harder to hit than your old set, that your shot dispersion got worse after spending £2,000, or that you are swinging harder than you used to, just to get the same distance, that is not your age catching up with you. That is a fitting failure that the industry has been trained to ignore because correcting it requires stocking 22 different shaft flexes and a lie angle bending station at every retail location. The fitting process assumes you are a statue. Your swing is not a statue. That disconnect is where the money disappears. Subscribe to make sure you are the one who walks into the fitting knowing what the fitter is hiding. Type static in the comments if you have ever had a fitting that felt rushed or assumed too much. The fourth mistake is forgetting that your swing changes across a round. A standard fitting takes place at the start of your day on a climate-controlled range using fresh balls that all fly the same. But on the back 9 of your Saturday round, when you are tired and your core temperature has dropped and your grip pressure varies by 30% from the first tee to the 12th hole, the club that performed perfectly on the fitting monitor is now a different weapon. Researchers in Sweden measured swing speed decay across 18 holes for amateur golfers over 55. They found an average drop of 6% from the first 9 to the second 9. That means a shaft suited to your 93 mph driver speed on hole 3 is too stiff for your 87 mph driver speed on hole 15. And the senior golfer who notices this usually assumes their body is failing. They reach for a lighter club or a softer ball. They never consider that the iron itself was fitted to a condition that lasts only half the round. If this hits something, comment the exact moment you realized your irons were fighting you rather than helping you. Because the fifth and most expensive mistake is one you have not even thought of yet, and it has nothing to do with the club head. It has to do with how you test the club before you buy it. And that mistake costs more than all 4 others combined. The fitting booth itself is the problem. You step inside, hit 10 shots with a 7-iron that feels perfect off the mat, and hand over your credit card before you have ever seen what that same club does from a tight fairway lie at 3 in the afternoon with dew on the ground. A fitting conducted on a mat produces artificially high launch angles and artificially low spin rates. The ball launches higher because the mat allows the club to bounce slightly before impact. The fitter sees a launch angle of 20 degrees and spins a 4500 and tells you the club is working. On real grass, with the ball sitting down, that same iron launches at 17 degrees with 6200 RPM of spin. A fitting mat lies to you. You paid for a club that works on a mat but fails on grass. Subscribe to learn how to demand the right test conditions before you open your wallet. Write "mat" in the comments if you have ever been burned by a club that looked perfect indoors. You lose 10 yards of carry and the ball stops rolling out. You bought a club that looked perfect in a simulation and failed in reality. One of the most revealing studies in club fitting was conducted by the Golf Science Center in Sweden, where researchers placed sensors on the clubhead during both mat and turf impacts. They found that the average senior golfer's strike point shifted 4 millimeters toward the toe on turf compared to the mat, 4 millimeters that the fitting never accounted for. The fifth mistake is that you never ask the fitter to show you the numbers you cannot see. The launch monitor displays carry distance, club speed, ball speed. It does not display the face angle at impact unless the fitter opens that screen. It does not display the strike location unless the operator manually enables the heat map. It does not display the spin axis tilt unless the fitter knows where to click. A fitter who leaves those screens hidden is a fitter who is selling you a club, not solving your miss. You walked in expecting to gain 10 yards and walked out with a set that made you worse on the course than your 15-year-old cavity bags. The shaft was too stiff, the lie was off by 2 degrees. The length forced you into a deeper crouch. The fitting assumed perfect conditions that never exist on a real fairway, and the data you needed to see was never shown to you. The fix is not a different brand. It is a different process. Demand a dynamic lie test on a turf surface. Insist on seeing the face angle screen and the strike location map. Take the club to a grass range before you commit, and never accept a stock shaft without hitting it at 3 different flexes on a launch monitor that displays spin axis tilt. You do not need a better swing. You need a club that matches the swing you actually have at minute 90 of your Saturday round. The industry built a fitting system that assumes you are a 25-year-old tour pro at peak freshness. You are not. And the moment you stop fitting yourself to that assumption, you start hitting irons that work the way your old ones used to.